Hello, this is Jolanta from the YouTube channel English with an Erudite. The video, as usual, is with subtitles in English, German and Polish, and the key vocabulary is in the box below the screen. Today I'm with my special guest, David. Some of you might remember David from our previous conversation. David is a native speaker of American English. And today we are going to talk about something I believe very few people know about, which is the presence of the American Army in Germany in the 1970s. Hello, Dave. Great to have you here again.
Hi, Yola. I'm happy to be here again.
Wonderful. David, when did you serve in the military?
Well, I was drafted, Yola, in 1973, and I served for 2 years up until, 1971, and I got out in 1973 in Germany, and I stayed there once I got out of the Army.
Why were you drafted, David?
Well, at that point, there was an obligatory draft, and you were assigned a number, and then numbers were pulled, and if your number came up, well, then you had to go. The Vietnam War was still on, and they needed people. People weren't volunteering, so they needed to get people through forced conscription, I guess you would call it. And so I went. I thought about going to Canada, but I was a young kid. I was kind of conservative in my thinking back then, and so no, I went in the Army. I wasn't too happy about it. I was happy later on, but I wasn't happy when I went in.
What branch of Army were you in?
Well, I was made a medical corpsman, and there's an interesting story behind that, because actually I had, in my youth, I had subscribed to a number of kind of radical publications. I got a newspaper from North Vietnam, I got a magazine from China, and the Army actually investigated me and interviewed me and determined that perhaps my loyalties were not as, firm as they would like, so they made me a medical corpsman.
And what does it mean? To be honest, I don't know.
Well, it's a medic. That means that you work
medic.
Either in a hospital or you're assigned to the medical unit. I eventually was assigned to an armored unit in Germany, and we had our own. It was a half-track vehicle, or no, it was an armored vehicle, and we just maintained our medical supplies and were prepared for the eventuality of war if we had to start taking care of wounded soldiers.
I see. And where exactly in Germany were you stationed?
I was stationed in Erlangen, which is a university town, I think about 20 kilometers north of Nuremberg, and I spent about 13 months there.
And how many soldiers were with you? I don't know if we are allowed to even ask such questions, but...
Well, I don't know. There was a whole base there, and I have to believe that there were a couple thousand at that post at the time. Yeah.
I see. And do you remember when the American Army withdrew from Germany?
Well, I'm not sure. I went back some years later, and that post had been decommissioned and turned over to civilian use. I think it was sometime in the 80s that they reduced the number of American troops in Germany by quite a bit.
I see. And how did you like it in the Army?
Well, I have to say that I had a pretty good time. I liked being in Germany. I spent a lot of time off base, and I hung out more with Germans, although I hung out with some of my comrades in the Army too. But I have to say I had a pretty good time. In my training, I had the worry that I might be sent to Vietnam, but I was given to understand at that point that draftees were not being sent to Vietnam unless they volunteered. There have been so many protests in the United States about people being drafted and sent to Vietnam that they stopped sending draftees. And so I got out after 2 years. I used the GI Bill to pay for some of my college education. So for me, it was a pretty good experience.
Could you explain to our viewers what the GI Bill was?
GI Bill was you go to college, you take a certain number of credits, and I think at the time it was, I got the sum of $330 a month, but which in the mid to late 70s, that was almost enough for a student to live on.
I see. And did you learn German while you were stationed in Erlangen?
I did. I had German friends with whom I only spoke German, but I had taken German in high school and college before that, so I already had some basis. And I had been to Germany before that also.
And do you still visit Germany?
I do when I get a chance. Still have friends there that I like to visit.
I see. Difficult question, perhaps. What did you think about Vietnam? Of course, not Vietnam as a country, but the Vietnam, the war in Vietnam.
Well, back then, a lot of people, obviously there were huge, massive protests. A lot of people at the time thought that Vietnam was a mistake. And as later came out, we found out that the whole Gulf of Tonkin thing, that was a lie. An American ship in the Gulf of Tonkin didn't happen. It was a lie. The whole war was based on a lie. And it was a big mistake. And what did us get us? 55,000 dead soldiers, millions of dead civilians. A lot of people at the time knew it was a mistake, but in retrospect, I think most people agree that it was a mistake.
Yeah, I think that this topic is quite unfamiliar to a lot of people who learn English. We just, especially people from Europe, we just know very, very little about it. So thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. It was great talking to you. I hope we can have another conversation sometime in the future.
Sure.
Thank you for watching us. Goodbye.